Hello and welcome to another edition of Designed for the Times. I'm your host, Richard Scuderi, and today as my guest is somebody who's been with me for the 21 years I've been in the industry, and her name is Patty Dewey. Welcome, Patty.
Thank you. Nice
So,
to be here.
oh, I'm glad to have you here. So we're going to talk about something today that I love to talk about with people because often they're quite shocked. Millennials aren't, but most of the rest of us are shocked, and that is the return of wallpaper. And I will say for the first 10 years of my 21 years in this industry, all I did was remove wallpaper. And when I removed wallpaper, my homeowners would say, never again. And we'll talk about that with Patty, why people said that, and how today's wallpaper is quite different, and the way it's put on is quite different, and the versatility of wallpaper. So let me talk a little bit about my use of wallpaper, and then I'm going to get into really the nitty-gritty, and Patty will show us some wonderful patterns, colors, what's trending, and where you should use it. Well, for me, I always say with bigger homes, you should try to have 2 or 3 different kind of surfaces on the walls. If you have a house, 2,800 square feet, 3,000 square feet or bigger, you have a lot of sheetrock. You have a lot of area to use. Now, the colors today are often the grays, so we're seeing more and more neutral tones. And every once in a while, you need a pop. And wallpaper has the ability not only to bring a pop with color, but the ability to bring a pop with texture. And that's why I love wallpaper so much. Now, I would say, Patty, in the 60s and the 70s, wallpaper was very big, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Wallpaper was big. I remember we would go to my grandmother's in Brooklyn, and she would say, "Don't touch the Sanitest." Now, I always thought that was like demi-tasse, like coffee, until I learned that it was wallpaper.
It's wallpaper.
Do you remember Sanitest?
Oh, absolutely.
Now, was Sanitest a brand?
It was a brand.
Okay.
Yes, and it was a fabric-backed wallpaper.
Oh, wow.
And fabric back had like strings on the back of the paper running vertically and horizontally.
I would think that would make it very hard to install.
No, actually, it was a strippable product.
Oh.
So it was heavier.
Sure.
And one of the reasons, of course, that people used wallpaper long ago was the walls were plaster. They weren't drywall.
And they had a cover, right?
They had to cover up imperfections in the walls, whether they were cracks or holes or whatever. And at that time, most of the wallpaper was made out of paper.
Wow.
That's why they called it wallpaper. We've graduated to a new term called wall covering.
Right.
Because you can use a number of things to cover the walls.
Right. So was the true origin of paper just that it wasn't such a beautification treatment as much as was to sort of level out those walls?
I'm
Or I should
not
say maybe
sure.
a fashion treatment,
Yeah.
as much it was to sort of cover?
Right. Plus, I think people put a lot into their homes. They spent a lot of time in their homes.
Sure.
You know, everything's centered around the home. And
Lots of entertaining.
and you have to remember, most women were homemakers.
Right, and they were home all day.
They were home all day. That was their job, to make the home the man's castle.
Sure.
And, you know, a place that they were proud of.
You know, ladies are cringing in the audience right now. So anyway, let's fast forward. And then I remember the 70s. When we wallpapered the kitchen, the hallway. I went into houses, I still go into houses today, that turn over and every room was wallpapered. Remember that?
Right, exactly.
And then the 80s, wallpaper was still very popular. Then in the early 90s, I would say I started to notice the shift. And people were taking down those original papers from the 60s, the 70s, and 80s, and they were having such a hard time. Why was it so hard to get those original papers off?
Well, in most cases, and it still happens today, most people, number one, do not read the instructions.
Oh, yes.
And it's a wall preparation problem.
Right.
Okay. There's a certain way to prep a wall for wall covering, and there's something called a wall covering primer, which is different than a paint primer.
Sure.
So if you use a paint primer, if the instructions say to prime the walls and you inadvertently use a paint primer instead of a wall covering primer, then you're going to have problems getting it off.
Sure.
Because a wall covering primer is constructed so that it seals the wall, and it also allows for the paper to slide easily on the wall. That's the purpose of it. unlike a paint primer.
So let's break that down a little bit. Now, I think today people are much more comfortable with hiring a paper hanger, although there are very few of them around these days,
Right.
as opposed to DIY doing themselves. But I do think, and you and I had this conversation, back in the day, a lot of people were trying to do their own wallpaper.
Oh, yes, yes. It was, in fact, back in the 70s.
70s, yeah.
The United States and North American market brought in from England, I believe, pre-pasted paper, where the paste was already on the paper.
You know what, I think I remember my dad doing that, and you just dipped it
You
in
just
water.
dipped it in water.
Right.
And that was for the American market.
Okay.
Okay, for the homeowners who did their own wallpapering.
Right.
So, you know, designers have always used paper hangers. They hire a professional to do the paper hanging, and they still do that today. But back then, a lot of people, husband and wives or sisters or brothers, would wallpaper the home.
That was their project.
That was their project, and it was normally a weekend project.
Right.
They would go to the local wallpaper paint store, and at that time, many of them had in-stock wall covering.
Right, I think there was a company called Pergament. Do you remember back in the
Yes,
day?
yes, I
And
do.
Pergament had a wallpaper section, and the rolls were already there.
That's
You
right.
picked them up on a Friday night, and then you had your Saturday project.
That's right.
But I think the problem in those early years of wall covering was that they didn't prep at all.
No.
So when that connected, when that sheetrock paper, and sheetrock is paper, connected with the glue in the backing, it was a disaster to take off.
It was a disaster.
And it took the sheetrock paper off.
It ruined the sheetrock. Then they had to skim the walls.
Yeah, it was a disaster. So
yeah.
people then told me, no wallpaper again. But what people started to see over time was that lots and lots of sheetrock walls painted colors is kind of boring. So then the inception in the late 80s and early 90s was what? Faux painting.
Faux painting.
So faux painting to me kind of replaced wallpaper, or was another element to give you some texture and depth.
Yes.
So just like the wallpapering, the early faux painting was just terrible. Do you remember the early faux painting? People would DIY it. And they would do what was...
They said anyone can do it.
And they would take a sponge, but not even like the right sort of a sponge.
Right.
They would take, you know, Cello or one of those brand sponges with water and water bubbles, and you would see the worst Miami colors. Remember that?
Yeah.
And then that lasted a while, but then when that went away, people went back to solid paint colors. But then I think people wanted depth, right?
They wanted depth, and you need texture.
Sure.
And with the houses getting larger and larger, you just can't use paint throughout the entire house.
Especially these days, because now they're not even doing a lot of different paint colors. The colors are coming in with the accessories, what's called the pop. But I'm doing many houses, people suggest they want every room a shade of gray, a neutral, with a white trim and white ceilings. So you need a pop, you know?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And nowadays, a lot of designers are doing, for that pop, what you call a focal wall.
Sure.
So it's the main wall in the room. If you have a fireplace in the room, they're doing the wall covering on the fireplace room, and you get that wow factor.
Exactly. So very much on that point, the way people are papering is different. They're not papering the whole kitchen. They're not papering a two-story hallway. They're often papering in segments, in accent walls. Yeah, they'll paper. What I do most often, I'll be honest with you, is where I bring paper is, number one, I bring paper in a powder room. I think paper in a powder room is the perfect solution, because every person in your house at some point is going to be in that little room.
Right.
And when you put paint in a powder room, what do you get? Water drips, fingertips, oil. It's just not a practical surface. But I see on your lap there you have some wonderful papers. So we'll start to put some of them up that might be kind of fun. And the first one has a little bit of, there's a reason besides it's color coordinated to Patty's outfit. Let's talk about the first one.
Yeah, now, this is what we call in the industry a horizontal silk.
Okay.
If you look at the pattern, you'll see horizontally.
Sure.
You can see striations
right.
running across. And one of the colors for 2018 was ultraviolet.
Ultraviolet. It was the Pantone, you were saying?
Pantone
color
for
of the year.
2018.
Right.
And it has a blue base to it.
Sure.
Very, very pretty.
And the pop. So if you have a 4,000 square foot house full of gray walls, wouldn't it be great to use something like this perhaps above a chair rail in a powder room? Or maybe because these days they're doing upholstered headboards, maybe on just the back wall, you have a great looking upholstered headboard and a dark charcoal gray, and you have this behind it with great pictures on it.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So areas that I'm using paper are definitely an accent wall where there's a fireplace. The bed wall where you have an upholstered headboard or a powder room, or maybe a dining room.
Dining rooms are, dining rooms are one area where a lot of homeowners would like to have wallpaper.
You need a little, don't you think that dining rooms, even though things are getting more casual, dining rooms need to be a little bit special, don't you think?
Yeah, exactly, because you have holiday dinners there, you have family members over, you have the beautiful table setting, the nice china comes out, and the silverware. This terracotta color
look at this.
is beautiful, and I don't know if you can see or not, but this line here is a metallic gold.
Wasn't it interesting?
Metals are still very big.
Right.
And one of the biggest metals is brass.
Sure.
So that's where the gold comes in.
Well, now what I see with this particular paper, and I don't know how it reads on camera, but when I see about this particular paper, it is that continued geometric and then natural materials, the look of natural materials. Which is very hot right now. Now I see you have a big geometric there.
I have a large geometric, and you were talking, of course, about the grays, and the grays are here to stay.
Sure. Whoops.
And navy blue is back, not that it ever really went anywhere.
As you know, because you've been a guest on my radio show on WHCR in Flemington, we did a whole episode last year dedicated to the color blue. Has blue ever been hotter? You know, blue has never gone away, right?
No.
But blue, especially as in this situation, paired with grays, I don't think it's ever been hotter.
Right.
And every shade of blue, from a pale robin's egg to a dark navy. Yeah, so isn't that interesting? A lot of depth.
You're seeing a lot of blue in the home fashion industry.
Yeah. And let's talk about scale. This has a very big scale.
Yes, it does. And one of the reasons, again, is the rooms are larger, and if you're doing a focal wall, you don't necessarily want a very small print on it that's going to get lost from a distance. You want that wall, again, to pop.
Sure.
And you want people, when they walk into the room, to go, wow.
Right. That's really something.
Wall covering, or that's wallpaper.
Right. It's sort of like it should fit the environment. Now, the newer houses often have 9 or 10-foot ceilings and have bigger open spaces.
Right.
So you want to make sure that your pattern repeat really corresponds with the size of the wall.
You do.
Sure.
And that's another area that we need to touch on, is the fact that so many of these new homes, or homes that have been built in the last 10 to 20 years, have open floor plans.
Right.
So there's nowhere to really cut that room. It's not like you have 4 walls that are sectioned off.
No, it's all open.
Like older homes had.
But even in the older homes now, what's happening is they're having me open up the walls. So then you go, oh, where do we cut the wallpaper line, or where do we cut the paint line? I don't know if you remember this, but in the mid-90s, there was a new builders when we had a boom out here with the building. We're doing a thing for a while as a feature. They were taking the corners of rooms, and instead of having them be sort of like this, where they're a tight corner, they were rounding them to have sort of a look where the corners were rounded. That didn't last.
I remember that.
That didn't last very long for just that reason. When you went to do the paint, you couldn't cut it with anything.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so very interesting with that. Let's see what else what did you bring us? I see there's a lot of things. We have a lot
I have a lot of stuff here.
All right. Whoops.
Again, the grays are very big, and it's not just a light shade of gray.
Right.
You have your deeper shades, your charcoal grays with orange.
I love it. You know, I did, if you look at Design New Jersey magazine, I'm featured in the March issue, and with the entire house, we peppered it as a gray base with pops of orange. Orange is a very popular pop color, don't you think? I really like this. And actually, this doesn't really read as orange to me. It almost reads as like a saddle, like a leathery, like sort of tanned leather with the gray. I would do this in my own home. I think this is quite beautiful.
Plus, this pattern has texture.
Well, you can actually feel the texture.
Yes, you can feel the
Sure.
texture, and in the background here, you can. I don't know if you can see.
I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but you
can.
can, right, and there's depth, and it's sort of dappled between a darker gray and a lighter gray. This is quite lovely. I might want to hold on to this myself. Let me ask you a question, though, Patty, and then I would like you, because we're about halfway through the segment, to move on to some of the fabrics and then some of the other things that you have. With the papers I'm seeing here, are these considered vinyls? Or these are just physically, we would call this a paper.
No, these are vinyl coated papers.
Vinyl coated paper.
There's very few manufacturers anymore who just do paper. Most of them put a vinyl coating.
Sure.
They print on what's called a substrate.
Sure.
They print and then they coat it with vinyl.
Okay.
And that's so that if you want to wash it down, it's washable.
So it just becomes a more practical surface.
Right. Exactly.
Now, what about pure vinyl? Because I am seeing a lot of, and being sent a lot of books with vinyls, very simple vinyls, even commercial 15 and 20 ounce vinyls that people want to put in their homes that just have texture.
They're just texture normally. They're printed on different types of machines.
Sure.
And there's nothing wrong with using those in your home.
Right.
The one thing about most commercial vinyls, they're twice as wide.
Right.
They're 54 inches wide.
inches.
So they're about this wide,
Sure.
4.5 feet. You have less seams, okay? So they're great for like hallways.
Right.
But if you have an area where there's a lot of cutting out, like a bathroom, a kitchen, there's too much waste using a 54-inch vinyl.
Well, and also the paper hangers don't always like to handle 54-inch goods because and if you have a 20-ounce vinyl, it's very hard for them to maneuver that because that has a lot of weight to it.
And if it's 54-inch, they generally work in pairs.
Sure.
Because you have to have a long
arm
span to hold a 54-inch.
But I do think sometimes you can find a vinyl that's 27 inches.
Oh yeah, so yeah, there are some out there.
Sure. Well, maybe look at one more paper.
Oh, yeah.
I like that gray one.
This is beautiful.
I like that gray
Look
one.
at
Let's look at
this.
that one.
Different shades of gray.
Okay.
And that's a texture.
Right.
And there is a very faint stripe.
Sure.
You can see the stripe
I see the
going
faint
down.
stripe. This almost reminds me of like a snake skin or something. It's very. I think this is like if I was doing a man room, a cave. This is it. This is really sharp. It kind of looks also like camouflage a little bit.
Right, and it's beautiful in every colorway.
Is it?
And these papers are from Pacific Designs International.
Pacific Designs, I love the company.
Yes, and if you look at their website, it's pacificdesigns.net.
.net. Okay, great. So I think maybe we'll transition a little bit because we only have about 9 minutes left in the segment. And let's talk a little bit about what you've done here. We'll hold some of the camera. These are beautiful fabrics. Tell us about some of these fabrics.
Okay. This company here is a company called Magitex Decor.
Okay.
And they do multi-purpose fabrics. They do upholstery fabrics. And they do drapery fabrics.
I don't know how the camera's going to pick this up, but it's a very rich and beautiful woven-looking fabric. And my favorite combination of lime and then shades of gray. It's really beautiful. So would this be considered an upholstery weight?
This is upholstery weight.
Okay, wonderful.
Right. And what you want to look for in upholstery weight is how many double rubs the fabric is rated for.
Okay.
Okay. This one happens to be rated for 100,000 double rubs.
Wow.
So if you were to put this on a chair or a sofa that people like in your family room sat on a lot, what that means is every time a person sits down and gets up, that's a double rub.
Ah,
Double rub
that's
on
what the
the
rubs
fabric.
mean. Isn't
That's
that
what the rub
interesting?
means. So if you're going to keep something for 10, 15 years, which most families do, you get a lot of wear out of the fabric.
So this is for residential use. What would the rubs be for a commercial product?
Commercial projects, this can be used commercially as well.
It looks very durable.
It's very durable.
Okay.
100,000 is a great amount of rubs for commercial.
That sounds like a lot of rubs.
But you can also go up to 200,000 double rubs.
Wow, interesting. Let's look at that unbelievable blue fabric.
Yeah, this again is 100,000 double rubs.
Okay.
And again,
Terrific.
this, if you feel it though, Rich, it's not as heavy as that one.
You know, we were talking because we were setting up before we are live today. And when we were taking a look at this, just by looking at it, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to do that on an ottoman with like black legs, it'd be sharp. And then I felt that you actually could make this a nice upholstery, drapery panel.
Drapery panel. Yeah, you
that's
really could.
And again, we're looking at what's trending, which is blue.
Blue.
And geometric.
Geometric.
And like a drape as a pop. Yeah, very nice.
And
like
a lot of people are doing panels, just panels.
Simple, sometimes
Right.
even unlined, stationary panels are more popular than ever.
Right.
Yeah. Nice.
This again is upholstery grade. And
Okay,
of
this is
course,
cool.
the grays and the pinks
Sure.
are popular.
Amazing. Kind of sort of a modern take on a paisley in a way, right? Geometric.
It's sort of like an OG design, isn't it?
So let's talk about the pink thing. Because you and I both said before we started the broadcast today, I'm seeing the return of pink. You too?
Pink, and you're seeing this season and last season, the most popular color, like in fashion and accessories, was blush.
Yeah.
The blush, almost like your shirt.
Sure.
It's sort of a peachy pink.
I would almost say like sort of nude, like a
Yes.
flesh tone pink.
Right.
I'm not a pink person at all.
Right.
I love that flesh color, that sort of that
Yes.
pinky blush.
Yep.
Not quite as it was back in the 80s, more sophisticated. And I noticed that it is on a lot of lovely women that I talk to in their homes, but I love it. I see it coming into design
Right.
now.
Yeah. And I read something recently where it's being paired with emerald green.
You have to talk about that
Look
because
at that.
people
Green is
it's coming back. Yeah.
People are, designers are asking for greens.
All of a sudden.
All kinds of greens.
Right.
They love the green grass. They love the lime greens.
Because they're kind of retro-y, aren't they?
Yes,
They're reminiscent of different times.
But this has like a regal look to it.
Sure.
The true emerald green.
Sure.
Not dark like the hunter greens.
No.
But like a true
Emeralds.
emerald.
Because you know what? With all the neutral grays, we need pops. That's what
Right,
it is. We need
right.
pops.
I've had so many. I've even had designers asking for green, like emerald green,
Right.
grass cloth.
Wow.
Which grass cloths are so big as a natural product in the
Yeah.
wall covering industry.
So, Patty, we only have about 5 minutes left. I thought maybe we'll show one or two more fabrics, and then
Yep.
some of the interesting things you have over here, so we get to
Look
everything.
at this blue and orange with the navy and the orange.
Right. People, blue and
Beautiful.
orange is one of my favorites.
I know, you did that
I
whole seating area
And blue and orange,
in
absolutely.
blue and orange.
Let's take a look at this, because I think this is very interesting over here, and then
This
we'll
is-
end with this.
Okay, so this is another company called
Okay.
Wallfab.
Okay.
Okay. They do higher end fabrics. This
Okay.
is all
I wanna-
embroidered.
Sure, I want to pair that with that and show you how interesting they look together. So couldn't you
This
imagine?
is very popular.
I'd love to do a window seat in a child's room in this. Wouldn't that be
Right,
terrific?
right.
Okay.
That's so much fun.
Right. So Patty, let's switch because we have about 4.5 minutes left and talk about some of the other stuff you brought here. Now
Okay.
this line I'm not familiar with at all, and I don't
Right.
carry it in my storage yet.
This is custom
Okay.
hand knotted rugs.
Oh, how nice.
These
Okay.
are made in Nepal. They're generally 100 knots per square inch, all
Okay.
done by hand. Nothing is done on a mechanized loom.
Sure.
And they're made from Tibetan wool or Tibetan wool and Chinese silk.
Oh my
I
God,
don't know
they feel
if
so beautiful.
If you're aware or not, but wool wears like iron. It is one of the most durable
yeah.
fabrics, and it's a natural fabric.
I want to see if we get the camera. There are smaller samples, so I want to see. This is gorgeous. This almost looks, when you look at it up close, if we pull this one up, it sort of looks like just sort of a random design. But if you take there's a sort of a key on the back of the pattern
Yes.
repeat, and it's actual circles.
Right.
This is just
And
beautiful.
these are all custom, so they're made to order. So the company is Julie Dasher Rugs.
Okay.
She is the designer. She's out of North Carolina,
Beautiful.
Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Wow, really nice. See if the
She
camera can see
does things that are in her catalog, but she also does custom.
Nice.
So because she does custom, if these colors are not to your liking or they don't match your decor, she can do whatever colors.
Well, let me ask you a question. Because this is custom, and it's kind of nice because we have odd-sized rooms, and some people want bigger rugs or smaller rugs. What if I was going to order this for a dining room, and I wanted 9.5 by 12? What's the lead time on a custom rug?
Well, it can, with Julie Dasher rugs, it's about 12 weeks.
12 weeks. Okay, not
Yes,
bad.
and everything is air freighted over from Nepal.
Uh-huh.
They can also use New Zealand wool, but they can design the rug to your liking.
So you want to see if we can see the camera
this
can
has
pick
like
that up.
the little bit of lavender
Nice.
going through it.
Let's show this
Some of
one.
the
I'm kind of
larger.
liking this one. Let's hold this up for the audience here and talk about this one. I see teal everywhere.
Teal, yes.
My God, right?
With the blue and green family.
Sometimes I say I think we've run out of ideas, so we're going back to what we used
now,
to do.
this one, if you feel it, this is wool and silk.
I was going to say that has a little sheen of silk in it.
It does. You can
And I
see
like the
that.
scale of the pattern.
And
That's
here
quite
is the
beautiful.
actual pattern.
Wow.
Look at that.
Don't you think one of the things, and we're just about to end the segment, don't you think one of the things is people really have to see pattern repeat? Because they don't visualize it.
Absolutely. These can be made in area rugs. They can be made in runners. They can be made to cover stairs.
Gorgeous.
They can make, we do flat weave rugs.
Yeah. And that little bit of silk makes it very, very formal. We have about 2 minutes left. I want to just show maybe one or two more things. And then Patty, we'll definitely get you on again to talk about it. Patty always brings me gifts, wonderful new things that inspire me. And I hope they're inspiring you guys today.
Well.
That's very pretty. I see a lot of gray, though, with that blue, right?
Yeah. It's sort of a steel gray blue.
And there's a lot of sort of the texture going on there.
Right. And here's the design.
Oh, my goodness. Now, who would think?
Who would think? It's very traditional.
Well, I like what this company does by giving you on the back the pattern repeat so you can really see what you're getting.
And she sells to the trade only, so the items have to be ordered through a designer.
And they're special.
And they're special.
Sure.
But she has a very interactive website.
Okay.
That you can change the colors of the rug once you're
Wow.
registered as a customer.
Let's talk about this. Let's talk about the shag.
This is the shag. Feel that.
That's fun, isn't it?
It's silk.
Oh,
a
my
silk
goodness.
shag.
Sure.
Remember the shag carpets?
I'm seeing retro people want the
Yes,
better times and
yes.
the comfort.
But can you imagine, feel that on your feet? If you were
Wow.
to have that like in your bedroom or your
I don't think
room?
I would come to work. So we're just about at 30 seconds. So I want to say, Patty, you were with Pacific Designs and you rep a lot of stuff for me. And I think you brought us
Right.
wonderful, wonderful things. And
Thank
last
you.
final thoughts. What do you see coming up? What do you see? What do you see as trending in the next year or 2 years? People want to do stuff. They always want to be cutting edge. What do you say?
Well, as I said before, one of the biggest things is in metal is brass, and they're pairing it with marbles.
Oh,
Marble and brass.
marble
is big.
and brass.
Right.
Great.
Botanicals, believe it or not,
They're back.
are back, and they're
Yeah.
still big, but they're a smaller scale. And
Yeah.
you're going to start seeing those from now, like through February.
Patty, you're a wonderful guest. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.